Hey guys, it's Jane. It's Friday today, and I'm back for a Friday Reads. I'm going to tick off a few things really quickly because I've got a lot to say about two of the books that I read this week, and I want to leave time to do that. So, really quickly, I read three other things this week before the things that I'm going to spend some time on. I read this, John Birmingham's Emergence. I understand it's also published under the title of Dave versus the Monsters. I have a real soft spot for John Birmingham. He's an Australian author who, I don't know, I feel like we're of a similar age, and he started publishing when he was quite young, and some of his early books I really resonated with. This one is just a sort of dumb shoot 'em up with monsters from the center of the earth and somebody kind of getting superpowers. And it leaves a lot of questions open. And there were good action sequences. I guess it's a really blokey book. I won't be continuing. So there's that. I read a short story by Mary Robinette Kowal called The Lady Astronaut of Mars. I really enjoyed that. It's a moving story about choices that we make and the conflict between following our dreams and being there for the people that we love. And I found that a really moving story. I also read The Ghost Brigades by John Scalzi, which is the second in the Old Man's War series. I was a bit disappointed by this. It's probably not worse than the first one. I think the first one exceeded my expectations and this one didn't. I think there's a really interesting plot, but the characterization was quite flat and the ending tied it up with the bow. I'd like to say more about the plot because I think the plot was really interesting. But as I said, I've got so much to say about the other two books that I'm going to actually just leave it at that. I've written more in my Goodreads review if you're interested in what I thought about that one in more detail. So the other two books that I read this week. Okay, I read Americanah by Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie. I think I got that right. And this was one of the big buzzy books on BookTube in the last year or so, and I've come to the party really late. It was beautifully written and it has lots of really interesting ideas. I understand why it has such a following. It has some really interesting observations about race, and not just in a by the way. There's actually like little excerpts of one of the characters in the book who writes a blog about race, and so there are explicit little kind of segments in it throughout, all about race, especially about race in America. It's about a couple of teenage lovers who are separated by circumstances. They grow up in Nigeria. He more than she, but both of them are kind of towards the top of the sort of social scale in Nigeria, but circumstances are such that they have to leave. She goes to America, he goes to the UK. Suddenly they are broke, alone, and in a world that they don't really understand, and they're both really brutalized by stuff that happens to them overseas. And she in particular can't live with herself and some of the things that she does, and breaks off the relationship with him, breaks off all communication with him. But then things change. He's back in Nigeria and suddenly is making money and is kind of climbing the world. Things change for her in America. She makes good connections. She gets work. She ends up finishing her degree with honors or whatever and making a living, having, rich boyfriends who give her lots of stuff. But she at some point, which is basically where the story opens, she decides to be true to herself in some way, she needs to go back to Nigeria. And so she's heading back. She's made it in the States. He's made it in Nigeria, but they haven't really been in touch. A decade or more has passed. And now the question that the story is raising is what is going to happen between these two characters. So I thought most of the book was really interesting. It had lots of really interesting stuff to say about women and the stuff that they're forced to do to get by, on top of all the other stuff about race, and that's women in the West, but also in Nigeria. The ending of this book really ruined it for me, and I don't even know what that says about me as a person, but I just felt that after all of this really honest stuff, the ending is saying that true love conquers all and true love makes everything right, but this is true love. Do you think this happens every day? And that's okay in The Princess Bride. But I just felt like it was really out of place in this book. And I felt kind of betrayed actually by that ending. I don't think it wasn't just the ending. There was actually another part in the book where somebody is quoted as talking about the fact that only romantic love is going to solve the race problem in America. And who knows? Maybe that's right, but it just doesn't ring true to me. And so, for all that I got a lot out of the book, I can't say that I loved it the way that so many other people have loved it. So there's that. The other book that I read this week that I wanted to just spend some time talking about was the Book of Strange New Things by Michael Faber. And wow. Wow. This book made me so angry. So angry. Okay, so brief plot introduction. It's some undetermined point in the future. Some guy called Peter, who was a Christian minister, British Christian minister, he was a druggie before he came to Christ, but now he's some sort of indeterminate type of Christian minister, has been selected by this shady sort of company to be sent through some sort of wormhole in space out the other side to this newly colonized planet called Oasis, there to minister to the natives, the Christian faith. And he knows nothing. He knows nothing about where he's going. He knows nothing about the people he's supposed to be working with. In his mind, he thinks this is kind of a short-term mission. His wife kind of can, in some of the stuff that she writes, she thinks this is going to be like 6 months or something. It's never entirely stated. But once he gets there, he realizes relatively quickly that basically they don't really think he's going home. This is it. So anyway, he knows nothing about the history of ministry to these people, whether there's people who've done it before. He knows nothing, and that doesn't seem to worry him. He knows nothing, and that doesn't worry him. He's setting off to the other side of the universe knowing nothing, but he believes that God is telling him that this is the right thing to do, and so it's all okay. I have no response to this book that isn't entirely visceral. It pressed all of my buttons as somebody who is a long-term Christian and has been involved in Christian ministry. I just couldn't believe that somebody could be this naive, and yet at the same time I kind of could, because there are Christians who just do so many stupid things thinking that they're doing the right thing and God wants them to do it. And this is just such a patent example of a Christian doing something stupid, but thinking that because they believe that it's what God wants, then it's all okay and everything will work out. This is the thing of all the things that made me so angry, that Peter, and to a lesser extent, but in the end, finally, the same way his wife, seemed to believe that because this is what God wants, they believe, based on their gut feeling, because this is what God wants, everything will turn out okay. Because the life of faith is wish fulfillment. Like, that is That is what they feel. And every time that something goes wrong, they feel betrayed by God. And it's like, you know, like I just, it made me so angry. He's always been in a context of ministry with his wife by his side, and now she is left behind because the company don't want her. They just want him. And he's like, oh, okay, as if everything is going to be okay. He leaves her behind. Soon she finds out she's pregnant, and oh, well, that's okay. So she's alone and pregnant, and then everything in England or in the world, Earth, is going down the toilet, which we get in drip feed information through her letters to him, which somehow she can email through this. It's just so shady what that company's doing. But anyway, and that kind of, yeah, he doesn't like thinking about it, but it doesn't really upset him because he's so focused on what he's trying to do with the natives. And then there's the stuff with the natives. Anyway, so it's staying with me. This book is staying with me. Basically, I wanted to slap the protagonist almost constantly from about the 1/4 mark on. Man, so there you go. I am reading at the moment The Fire Next Time by James Baldwin. This is one good thing that came out of Americanah. At some point, she goes through the character, the female character in it, goes through a bunch of American authors that she finally gets to appreciate when she's living in America. And James Baldwin, The Fire Next Time, is the first book that she talks about. And so I thought I really need to read this. So I'm doing that. This is something else I need to show you. When I went to my local comic store the other day, I found this. Did anybody know that this existed? There is a comics version of Dirk Gently. That's that. Again, I'm not really sure what I'm going to be going on with after this, but I'm sure I'll find something. I hope you're all well, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.